All right, welcome back, everybody. It's day 1,462 of the quarantine. At least that's what it feels like. And I know everybody's bored, and we're still here in the museum here at the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company. Now, at Manassas Volunteer Fire Company, Fire Station 501, there's a museum. If you don't know that, you can stop by, log on the webpage. They'll give you a phone number to call, and you can come take a tour. But while you're sitting at home and you can't get out, we're going to give you a little tour. Now, this is the third installment. We're going to talk about gear and what the firemen used to have to wear all the way back in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Now, basically what the guys used to have to wear before they had raincoats was really they would just show up in gloves and anything they had. They started to get into the late 40s and they started using raincoats and leather helmets. Before they had 10 helmets or they had anything they could use to protect their heads. The Manassas Volunteer Fire Company had an agreement with Gene Davis. And Gene Davis had a clothing store, which is now Monza's. And now Monza is a restaurant that in the back they would have all the gear for the firemen. Now you can see some of the stuff they had used to wear trying to have different air packs. This is a rebreather. It's part of our turnout gear. They would have to wear this. Almost looks like a scuba diving set. But this is what they would wear going inside of fires. Now the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company for years also had women's auxiliary. And you walk back here, I'll show you their outfits that they wore. There they had different types of uniforms. The Manassas Volunteer Fire Company Auxiliary was a big part of this in the late 40s and the 50s and the 60s. And this is what they would wear, and they were a huge part of raising money for the volunteers because the only way they could get money to buy these fire trucks and to buy this gear was the women's auxiliary. And they're still a very, very huge part of the company today. Now this used to be a thing to be in because a lot of the women really wanted to hang out with these. This was kind of like the cool crowd back in the day. And everybody wanted to be a part of the women's auxiliary, but the only way to be in the women's auxiliary was to get your husband into the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company. So the women would push their husbands to get into the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company so they could hang out with some of the cooler ladies in town. And it was more fun to do that. So if you walk up here, I'll show you the evolution of gear. Now once the turnout gear started to get a little bit more rigid and more safe, you started to see more of the turnout gear that you see here. Had different gloves, covered more. We have pants. Before we had the 3/4 boots. Now we're all the way geared up with different helmets. You can see some of the boots that we used to have to wear here. If I can find them here. The gear falls off. So you can see some of the rubber boots that we had. Now these aren't hip boots, and some of them would come all the way up your hips to kind of protect you. So the gear that we have, and this is our air pack that was really around the early 1900s, late 1980s. This is the box that they would keep it in, and they would sit up in the compartments in the trucks just like this. The gear has really changed over the years, really become a lot safer. We can really go further into fires to try to save people that we need to save. If you guys are sitting at home, we'll be back